Byron said, social innovation takes place in complex systems. And complex systems have complex problems. Like the kinds of problems the world is trying to tackle right now. Climate change, HIV/AIDS and other pandemics, poverty, inequality. In my own career as a medical doctor, I started looking at one could call more simple problems. I was really interested in maternal and child health, and specifically why so many newborns, neonates, were dying across the world. So by no means a simple problem, and yet definitely a complicated problem. But my approach to it as a medical doctor was a technical one, trying to understand the root causes and the biological causes of newborn deaths, prematurity, asphyxia, infections. But the deeper I got into working in these kinds of situations and the kinds of solutions I was working on developing with others was starting to look beyond the medical and starting to look at the social reasons, the economic reasons, the political reasons, the reasons why mothers did not have access to healthcare, which included transport, income, food, unemployment, education, knowledge. These problems don't have simple or complicated solutions to them. And so in the world of social innovation, we've used a term which was described by Rittel and Weber in the 70s called wicked problems. And wicked problems have several key characteristics. The first of it is that these problems don't have a clear definition of the problem or its root causes. And so looking at newborn mortality, it's very clear that while we can have a definition of what is an acceptable rate of children dying in the world, the actual view of that problem and its causes isn't clear, and therefore the approaches we take to them are not entirely well laid out. And certainly the next characteristic of wicked problems is that stakeholders have a very different view, could have very divergent worldviews of what the problem is in the first place and what it means to us is a clear definition of a wicked problem. So, for example, a mother thinking about the health or the death of a child and the value and what that means to her is something very different to that of a policymaker in an economics ministry, and what the value is of that child and that child's life to our society. So the clear framing of what the problem is already contested. The third characteristic of wicked problems is that there isn't a fixed set of solutions readily available to how we might solve them. So certainly if newborn mortality has been solved in one part of the world does not mean the same set of solutions is going to be solved in another one. Also, it doesn't mean that we're limited by a set number of potential solutions to these problems. In fact, it opens up an innumerable number of potential ways of working with wicked problems. And no single solution is certainly going to solve it. The fourth characteristic of a wicked problem is that there isn't a final endpoint. There isn't a final solution. We're never going to end working on child mortality. There will always be children, unfortunately, who die in the world. And if we look at really what the root causes of those things are, we may reframe the problem. And even if we get to a point where so few children die in the world, we feel it's not a significant problem in our society, the real root causes of why that existed in the first place may still be there. And also it may create other problems of children may be alive, but living in what kind of life? A life of dignity, a life of hope, a life of opportunity. Will always be working with the complexities of those problems. The final characteristic and definition is that every wicked problem is likely to be a symptom of some other problem. And so going back to the thinking of complexity is that there is a dynamic at play, and that when working on one part of a problem or a solution, we're certainly impacting and seeing either the cause or effect of another part of the system.